I wanted to do a little more Chevy engineer bashing. One of my favorite things to do. This piece is obviously the driver's window and lock control, and the way they designed it, you would have to take the whole door panel off to remove this correctly, because it has one spring clip in the back, but it was held on with a plastic piece that has this bolt in it. And so this bolt is only accessible with the whole door panel off. But to me, that's stupid, because this is a piece that you are going to need to service at some point and or replace, and to have to take the whole door panel off when you could have easily made this a spring clip here and just pop this up and be done. That was just a stupid design. So I'm debating on one, just reattaching that piece without the bolt and just leaving it basically sitting there so that it is a easy to service piece, or two, gluing a Christmas tree type deal on there to where it will kind of stick into the hole and hold better, because I have a feeling without the bolt this may rattle a little bit and be loose when driving. So the whole reason for this was when I would press lock, basically I could press it over and over and over and over, and then every once in a while it would sense that I pressed it. Everything else is working just fine on here. I looked, these are like $100 and something to replace, and that's with a, you know, an aftermarket cheaper version. I'm sure the factory one is even more expensive. So with only this piece being damaged, to me it's not very wise to have to replace the whole thing. Again, bad engineering. So I cleaned all of this out with some alcohol, and we will see if that fixes it. As far as pulling these apart, they just snap together. Just basically stick a plastic tool in there and it will separate from these little tabs here, and they're on each side obviously, so you got to do all 6 of those. And then if you're needing to disassemble this, you've got basically 8 tabs to remove, plus the tape. And believe it or not, that tape is really on there good. This is a 2004 Avalanche that was bought in October of 2003, so this switch is almost 20 years old, and that tape is still holding on there really well, like, you know, doesn't peel up or anything. So I don't know what type of tape that is, but that's pretty amazing. But anyway, you could pop that up, and I don't think there's a way to just remove this actual lock switch and replace it, but if you know if there is, let me know, because I would really be tempted to totally disassemble this and change that out. But I'm hoping just cleaning the contacts with alcohol will make a difference. In case you didn't know what I meant by a Christmas tree, this is what I was talking about. And you see it's almost the same length and pretty close to the same thickness. So I'm thinking I may have to cut some of this off to get that in there, but basically just glue that in there with some epoxy, and then that way it will hopefully press down and secure itself. And then I can just save this if I ever do decide to take the whole door panel off to work on this. I can always reattach this if this fails, but if this holds up, then to me that's the better design. So you can see I cut it, so now it's just like a T, and it fits in there pretty much perfectly. So I'm gonna put some epoxy in there, some JB Weld, stick that on there and hold it for a while, and then once it sets up, it should hold really well. Mix as close as you can to 50-50 the two parts. I call it the steel and the hardener. And the better you get it mixed, the better job it'll do. Now, I already cleaned everything with alcohol, so we're ready to go. You can pretty much clean with alcohol or lacquer thinner or like a paint prep product. Any of those will usually do the job for you. And like I said, what I'm going to do is gob this in there so that it's going to form a real thick, basically chunk of plastic once it dries and hardens. You see, it looks like it's actually holding up pretty well. So I may just leave it and let that harden. Typically a couple hours and it'll be hardened, and then that won't go anywhere. So see, my lock still doesn't work, at least 100%. It's better though, because it wasn't even working, like 10 or 20 pushes and it wasn't working. I did go ahead and disassemble the switch, and it was not really what I was expecting to find. So you have this piece, and this came out, and then it has two levels of pieces in it, and so this is the lock side, and I was expecting to see something real obvious wrong and I did not. So I cleaned this contact here with alcohol, which that is the lock contact, and I wonder if it just wasn't making good contact. It looked like it had a teeny tiny bit of dirt on it, but nothing that really jumps out as being, you know, in need of soldering or anything. So I'm going to take a closer look and just make sure I don't see any kind of broken solder contacts or anything, and then we'll put this all back together. Not my favorite sort of design of having to pry apart all these little pieces of plastic. I managed to do it only breaking off one tab, so this side stayed intact. That one broke off almost immediately, but you just had to pry them outward, and then when you got all 8 of them disconnected, then you could push downward on the board, which this is the board, and these are the 8 contact points that were holding it together. Yeah, I don't see any obvious broken solder points or anything like that. You know, it's way beyond WJ Handy Dad's skill level to know, like, if one of these components is internally damaged and needs to be removed and resoldered. That's way beyond my skill level. So I am going to just put this back together and see what we get. So the first step is putting the light back in, which unfortunately it just fell out and I didn't catch where it was or how it went in here, so I'm gonna have to figure that out. There's probably only one way that it truly fits. looks like it fits in there like that. There's a tab there and a tab there to hold that in place. And then the lock side is that side. So that's going to go in, and then there's 2 posts that it's going to go over. So you'll know you have it in the right spot. And then it just kind of snaps into place. And that's kind of how you want to see those. The tabs will be locking that board into place. And then this piece goes in with this side down to connect to there. And otherwise it just snapped right on. Make sure I got that in there right. Yeah, so it's not a real tight, snappy fit. It just kind of sits in there, and then that piece obviously snaps over everything and makes all your connections. So you got all 8 back together. All the buttons have resistance now, and they didn't have any resistance at all when the board was out, so I'm thinking they're back together. So we'll go plug that in again and see if my lock is improved. All plugged back in, the moment of truth. And that seems to have fixed it. So apparently just a little dirt on that contact, cleaned with alcohol. It did require removing the whole board to clean it, but it is now working effortlessly. So that's a good repair. Now we'll see if my little Christmas tree thing fixed. And this is where that broken piece, so the bolt comes in from the bottom side, obviously. So I'm hoping my little Christmas tree will squeeze in there tight enough, and then the rear side has that. And hoping that that will hold, and then I'm just going to figure out a place to store this for now. One thought is literally just tape it in there somewhere. But with my luck, it'll fall into the door, so I'll put it somewhere safer. I think it's snapped into place now. And that's not moving. So, there you go. This is not sliding. Well, that may be a lubrication issue, or maybe the motor's going bad in this door. Who knows? So, looks like I did fix the switch anyway. So, cleaning with alcohol is all it took. And it's almost a 20-year-old switch. This truck was bought in October of 2003, so I've had it ever since. Anyway, hope that video is at least a little bit helpful to you. Appreciate a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and please tell your friends about my channel. Thank you very much.